called solitude. The treasure called solitude. Did you all hear that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, you know, we started our topic by looking at time. We started a series called Time Management Series. And we started by saying that time is one of the most important resources that every one of us has been given. And that time is the greatest wealth there is in the world. And we also said that the first principle of time is that time must be converted into products. Time must be converted into products. But today, we're going to be looking at something called solitude. Now, solitude is one of the greatest treasures that anybody can produce with his time. Solitude is one of the greatest treasures anybody can produce with his time. Now, what do I mean? If we said that the first principle of time is that time must be converted into products, then I want to say today that before you can convert time into products, you must first of all convert that time into a treasure. And the name of that treasure is called solitude. And solitude is one of the greatest treasures that you could ever have. In fact, there is nothing that will exist if there is no solitude. There is nothing that can be produced if there is no solitude. Because everything that exists came out of solitude. We said before in our first class that everything that exists is a product of time. But today I'm saying to you that anything that ever exists is only in existence because of a treasure that is called solitude. Now, what do I mean by solitude? Solitude simply means the state of being alone. Solitude simply means the state of being alone. The state of removing yourself from the crowd. Solitude is a state of isolation. Solitude is a time in which you decide to be alone by yourself. Solitude is a time where you decide to say that I want to remove myself from the people around. I want to remove myself from all the activities around in the world. And I want to be alone just by myself. That is solitude. Are we together? Now, if solitude means being alone, of what importance is solitude? Why should I be alone? When we were created to fellowship with each other. We were created for relationship. But why should I be alone? And why should I say that solitude is one of the greatest treasures you could ever have? The reason I'm saying solitude is one of the greatest treasures you could ever have is because without solitude, nothing can be given birth to. Without solitude, nothing can be produced. Without solitude, nothing will exist. I'm going to prove that to you. Now, do you know that before any man at all will write a book, before any man will publish a book, now, that man will first of all have to isolate himself. He will have to remove himself from the crowd and go into an isolated place and begin to think upon what he wants to write about. He goes into isolation to imagine what he wants to write about. Now, when he has what he wants to write about, he will still isolate himself from the crowd and from the noisy environment and begin to put down his thoughts into writing. And before you know it, a book is produced. So a book can only be written thanks to solitude. If I am always with people, I'm always in the company of crowd and multitudes, I cannot write a book. I cannot write a song. I can't do anything meaningful with my life if I'm always in the company of people. So that is why I said that nothing can be produced without solitude. Even you exist today thanks to solitude. Your father and your mother had to isolate themselves from the crowd. And they had intimacy. And that intimacy led to a seed, led to a fruit. And you are that fruit. So you are a product of solitude. It means that whenever man decides to go into solitude, a fruit must come out of it. That is why you are the fruit that came out of the solitude that your parents had. A book is the fruit that comes out of the solitude that an author had. A song is the product of the solitude that a singer has. An iPhone is a product of the solitude that the manufacturer of that iPhone had. Because the manufacturer had to first of all isolate himself from the crowd. To go and think, what kind of phone do I want to manufacture that has never existed before? What kind of phone am I going to produce that the whole world will buy? It took solitude for him to be able to imagine that. And then again, it took solitude for him to actually go into the process of producing that phone. You think if Steve Jobs was in the stadium watching match with the crowd, he would be able to come up with such an idea? Or you think if he was there, he would be able to actually go down and go and draw the plan of how the phone would be like? Even to make a car, you need to be in solitude to have the ideas. Why? Because all inventions are product of solitude. A man who is always in the crowd cannot have imaginations, cannot even think right. So, if you want to invent anything, you will first of all become a friend of solitude. So that is why I said that there is nothing that exists that is not a product of solitude. Just look around you. Everything you see, somebody invented it. But how did the person get the idea? The person had to isolate himself and go to a secret place, a secluded place, to think upon that idea and then to convert that idea into a finished product. So, solitude is a time in which you decide to say that within this period of time, I'm moving away from the crowd. I'm switching off all social networks. I'm switching off every distraction. I want to be by myself. I want to have imaginations. I want to reflect. I want to think. One of the greatest tragedies that exists on the earth today is that people do not think. Why? Because thinking is one of the most difficult things that a human being does. Now, that is why we have only very few thinkers in the world. And those who are thinking are the ones who are inventing everything that we are using today. The rest, because they do not think, they have become consumers. They are not producers. They don't produce anything. Those who produce are those who have been able to isolate themselves to think upon what they want to produce for humanity. To think about what impact they want to add to the world. So, solitude is one of the greatest things that you could ever do for yourself. Because with solitude, you can produce anything. You can create anything. So, now we said in one of our classes that time does not wait for anybody. Time keeps diminishing. Time keeps reducing. Time keeps passing by. But one of the ways to arrest time from passing by is solitude. Because in solitude, you make up your mind to say, within this 1 hour or 2 hours, I'm not doing Facebook. I'm not watching match. I'm not watching comedy. I want to arrest this 1 hour and use this 1 hour to produce something meaningful for my life and for generations to come. So with solitude, you are arresting time from passing by. You are saying this time, you will not just pass by. I'm going to convert a product out of you. That's what you do when you go into solitude. So solitude is the greatest treasure that any man could ever have. And without solitude, there will be no products. Without solitude, there will be no life. Now, why do I need to have solitude? I'm going to give you 3 or 4 advantages why you should have solitude. Do you know that there are people who have lived all their lives, for say 40, 50 years of their lives, they have never one day sat down to think, to ask themselves, what am I doing here on earth? What is my contribution to this world? Why am I existing? Why? People do not think. Why don't people think? Because people do not know how to isolate themselves. People always want to move with the crowd. That is why if you look around you today, you see people just running here. Our world is a noisy world. People are just confused. Just running from here, from one pole to another. Just busy. With no products. Now, if you do not have solitude, you will find yourself you will just be busy. Because there are a lot of things that will take your time. You will just be busy, but you will have no product to show for it. And such people who are just busy without products, I call them busybodies. And there are so many busybodies today in the world. Have you ever been to a marketplace before? You see how rowdy a marketplace is. Yes. That is how the life of most people are. Their life is rowdy. They don't have time to think, to isolate themselves from the crowd. So without solitude, your life will be a scattered life. So the first advantage of having solitude is that solitude helps you to reorder your life. You can write it down. Solitude helps you to reorder, to rearrange, to organize your life. Why? Because our lives are scattered. Our life is filled with things that we want to do that we don't know how to do. Things that we wanted to do that we couldn't do. Our life is just overwhelmed by activities. You are always busy, but there is no results, no product to show for it. Your life is scattered without solitude. Without solitude, your life is just a bunch of disordered activities. You want to go to school. You want to go to church. You want to go to club. You want to go and watch match. You want to go and watch this movie. You want to visit this friend. Just activities. But no products. But when you have solitude, you are able to remove yourself from plenty activities. You are able to isolate yourself. You are able to use your time more productively. You are not carried away by every activity that is happening. You are not found everywhere. You know how to isolate yourself. When everybody is moving with the crowd, you refuse to follow them. Why? Because those who follow the crowd will have no man to follow them. Why? Because those who follow the crowd do not produce anything. Those who follow the crowd do not have any invention. They don't have any products and nobody follows them. But those who isolate themselves from the crowd are the ones that the world celebrates. After that, we are celebrating Mark Zuckerberg. After we are celebrating Steve Jobs. After we are celebrating Bill Gates. These guys isolated themselves from the crowd. They removed themselves from the frivolities of life. From the numerous activities, numerous distractions of life. And they were able to put their thoughts together in solitude and came out with a product. So without solitude, your life is scattered. But with solitude, you can decide to say, you ask yourself, there are so many activities. In fact, let me tell you the truth. Most times you hear people always saying, oh, I don't have time, I don't have time, I don't have time. But what do they do with their time? Unproductive activities. They waste their time on irrelevant things. They want to go to parties, they want to go to club, they want to watch everything. They're always before the TV. They have assignments they want to do that they couldn't do. They have goals and plans they want to achieve, but they cannot achieve them. Why? Because without solitude, your life is disordered. Your life is scattered. Your life is in disarray. So solitude helps you to rearrange, to organize, and to put your life in order. So when you go into solitude, what do? You say, this week, I'm not going anywhere. This week, I'm locking myself in my room. This week, I'm going into solitude. No meetings, no parties, no invitation, no TV, no comedy, nothing. I'm going to isolate myself in my room for 1 week. What am I doing there? I'm bringing out creative products. I'm putting my mind into use. I'm putting my imagination into use. I'm thinking how I can create a product that will benefit the world. I'm thinking how I can better impact the world. I'm thinking how I can produce a book of my own. I'm thinking how I can write a song of my own. I'm thinking about how I can perfect my keyboard skills. I'm not going where, no distraction. That is solitude. So with solitude, you are able to reorganize your life. Nobody distracts you. All phones are switched off. All social media platforms are closed for this 1 week until I achieve what I want to achieve. That is solitude. That is why you don't see inventors. You don't see them anywhere in the crowd. You don't just see them everywhere. They isolate themselves. So until you learn to isolate yourself and rearrange your life will be scattered. You won't be able to produce anything out of your life. So that is number one benefit of solitude. It helps you to reorder your life. Now when you are reordering your life, one of the things that happens to you is that you sit down and ask yourself in solitude, I have a lot of things I've been doing, but I can't see the products. So you ask yourself, what should I be doing? What have I been doing that I was not supposed to do? What is it that I must do and what is it that I must not do? Where must I go and what must I not go? Which friends do I need to keep and which ones I need to let go? Which meetings do I need to attend and which ones I don't need to attend? When you do that, you streamline your life into what is important for you. Not just unnecessary meetings and unnecessary, parties and things that people do. So that is what solitude does for you. It helps you reorder and rearrange your life. And no man is truly successful until he has learned how to reorganize his life. No man. No man. Look at all the great men you know. They are people who are well organized. Their lives are not scattered. They are not under pressure to attend every meeting that the people invite them to. They are not under any form of pressure to please anybody. Why? Because they know how to draw a timetable for themselves and they keep to it. They isolate themselves and do what they want to do. Number two thing that solitude will help you do. Solitude will help you prioritize. What do I mean by prioritize? There are a lot of things beckoning on you. There are a lot of things trying to get your attention. See, let me list some of the things for you. Facebook is there, trying to get your attention. Instagram is there. Snapchat is there. WhatsApp is there. UEFA Champions League is there. Premier League is there. All the comedy shows are there. Iroko TV is there. African Magic is there. So, a lot of things are trying to get your attention. Friends are having birthday parties, they are inviting you. Friends just want to hang out, they are inviting you. They want to go to the club, they are inviting you. So, a lot of things are beckoning on your attention. But with solitude, you know how to prioritize. which one should I attend, which one should I not attend? Which one is important to the fulfillment of my purpose? Which one do I need to fulfill my destiny? Which one do I need to become a better person? Which one will help me produce my product faster? So with solitude, you are able to prioritize. You don't answer every call. You don't attend every meeting. You first of all ask yourself, if this meeting I'm going for is 1 hour, what product can I produce within that time? If I can't produce any product in that meeting, I'm not going. If that meeting does not add value to my life, I'm not going. I would rather use that time to stay at home and read a whole book and finish a book. So with solitude, you know how to prioritize. You know how to draw your scale of preference. And you make sure that only things that add value to your life are the things that you spend your time doing. That you invest your time doing. That's number 2 advantage of solitude. The third advantage of solitude is that solitude helps you to rebuild your life. Now, this is very important. In fact, for me, I feel this is one of the most important advantages of solitude. You can rebuild your life. Did you hear what I just said?
Yes, sir.
You can recreate yourself. I'm going to say something very striking now. I just said now that with solitude, you can recreate yourself. You become a creator with solitude. Now, why did I say you can recreate yourself? Now, I just told you that without solitude, our lives are overwhelmed with a lot of things. Do you know, most people do not even know who they are. They don't know what temperament they have. They don't know their strengths and their weaknesses. They don't know what causes them to fear and what makes them bold. Why? Because people are just living life, following the crowd. But with solitude, you can rebuild your life. Let me explain how you can rebuild your life with solitude. Now look at yourself. Is there anything in yourself, in your life, that you look at, you say, this thing is a weak point? I think this thing is my weakness. Is there anything like that in your life?
Yes.
Now, that thing that is your weakness, that thing that is a weak point for you, that is your soft spot, that you don't like, with solitude, you can remove that thing from your life. I'm going to tell you how. In other words, with solitude, you can make yourself the best of yourself. You can create your best self. You are, as you are now, that is not your best self. Don't ever believe that this is all that you can become in life. There is something better. There is a better you. But that better you can only be created in the place of solitude. I'm going to tell you how. Let's assume, for example, that your weak point is anger. For example,
Yes.
anger has become part of your life and you don't like it. But you have never, for once, put any effort to remove that weakness from yourself. You just accepted it as, oh, this is how I am. But I'm telling you today that with solitude, you can recreate your life. How? You can remove some character that you don't like from yourself and add character that you admire. How do you do that? I take anger, for example. Very soon, your school will go on summer holiday, for example. You could say that this summer, or within 2 weeks in the summer, I want to recreate that anger part of my life. I want to remove it from my life. You go into solitude. For 2 weeks, what are you doing in solitude? You go and look for all the books that have ever been written on anger management. All the videos, all the lessons that anybody has ever taught on anger management. And lock yourself up in that your room for 2 weeks. Just reading the books on anger management. Watching the videos on anger management. Listening to tapes on anger management for 2 weeks. You exhaust all the materials. Make sure you have imbibed enough virtue in yourself on how to overcome that anger problem. Now, as you are coming out of solitude after 2 weeks, you are coming out a new man. Why? Because everything that you need to overcome that anger problem, you have learnt it. You have added so much value to yourself in solitude. And when you come out a new person. What have you done? You went in as somebody who had anger problem. But you are coming out of solitude a free man. You are no longer bound by anger anymore. Do you understand what I just said?
Yes, sir.
So what you just did, you just recreated your life. Now, any virtue at all that is lacking in your life, you can create it in solitude. How? Let's assume again, you have problem with financial management. Money comes to you before you know the money is gone. You don't know how to manage money. You can tell you, say, I'm going on solitude. For 1 month, I want to learn how to manage money. And you go into solitude, get all the material that you know on the internet, books, tapes, that talks about how to manage finances. Read all of them, exhaust all the materials. And before you come out of that solitude, write down a plan of how you are going to start managing your finances from the knowledge you got from the books. When you come out of solitude, you are coming out a very proficient financial manager. What have you done? You have just added virtue to yourself. What was not there when you were going in, you come out with it. So with solitude, you can recreate your life. So any virtue, any character at all that you don't like, or that is lacking in you, go and look for all the materials. Lock yourself up in solitude and study those materials. Add enough value to yourself, and you are coming out a new person. Now, what about if there are people who are your mentors? There are people you look up to as your idol, people, successful people you are looking up to. You can go into solitude just to study the biography of these people. What made them successful? What are the virtues that they have that I don't have? What are the good virtues they have that I don't have? You can pick, for example, Warren Buffett, or you can pick Jack Ma, or pick Bill Gates, and say, I've been looking up to this man, but I want to go and study what made him successful. So you go into solitude for 1 week, just studying Bill Gates alone. All the principles he used to succeed. All the hard work, everything he did that made him successful. You imbibe those virtues into yourself. And as you are coming out of solitude, you are coming out a better person. So what are you doing? You are recreating your life. I can't stress this enough. The way you are now is not the best you can be. So if there is anything lacking in your life at all, you can go into solitude and build that thing into your life. You can take away all the bad character, all the bad virtues that you have. Remove them from yourself by going to study how to overcome them. Like I give you an example of anger, or you don't know how to manage money. There are a lot of examples. Number 4 advantage of solitude. With solitude, you can solve any problem. With solitude, you can solve any problem. What do I mean by solving any problem? See, there is no problem that exists without an answer. The reason why you are still having that problem is because you have not discovered the answer. Every problem has got an answer, has got a solution. So if you have any problem at all, you can decide to say, I'm going into solitude just to find solution to this problem. How do you do that? Let's assume you are having relationship problems. You don't know how to manage your relationships. You keep having heartbreaks, or you keep breaking people's hearts. You can decide to say that this is the problem I have. All my relationships, they don't work out. Now, what do you do again? You want to solve that problem. But there are people who have the answers, And the answers have been written in books. You go and look for all the books on relationship. Read them and apply them to your life. It will take you 1 month to read all the books on relationship. And when you come out, that problem is solved already. The same thing, you don't have money, you are poor. There are people who have the answers to wealth creation. Get all the book on wealth creation, lock yourself up, switch off every device, every other thing, just focus on that topic, exhaust the material, come out, and you go and create wealth for yourself. So you see, there's no problem that cannot be solved with solitude. So with solitude, you can solve any problem at all. Number 5 example or advantage of solitude. Solitude helps you to come out of the rat race of life. We are living in a world where people are in a rat race. Everybody is hurrying nowhere. No destination. People are just busy. No destination, no products. Nothing to show for it. Without solitude, life is a rat race. And people who are in the rat race, they don't produce anything. They don't leave their mark in the sand of time. They don't make any impact. Why? Because they are in a rat race. But with solitude, you isolate yourself from the rat race of life. And you go and ponder upon what you have been called to do. You say, I want to discover my purpose this month or this week. You go back to your Creator. With solitude, you alone and God. And you say to God, God, this is me. Why do I exist? Why am I here on earth? So by doing that, God is going to be giving you ideas, giving you information about you that you didn't know. So you come out, you are no longer running with everybody. You are no longer in a rat race. You are coming out with a specific direction. You know what to do with your life now. So with solitude, you remove yourself from the rat race of life. And you begin to create your own paths. You are not following the crowd again. You are creating a path for others to follow. Why? Because you have been able to go into solitude and get the specific direction that you need for life. So that's what solitude does for you. Number 6th or 7th advantage of solitude. Solitude can help you eliminate fear and worries from your life. Fear and worries. There are a lot of things that happen in life that make you worry. You are always worried. You are always afraid of things that may happen. But do you know that that fear is in itself is bondage? You can go into solitude just to build boldness in yourself. There are books that have been written on courage, how to become bold, how to be daring. Go and read the books and build as much courage and boldness in yourself to overcome fear and worries. Number 8 advantage of solitude. Solitude helps you to depend only on your source. I say that again. Solitude helps you to depend only on your source. Who is your source? God is your source. Now, most people think that they cannot exist without other people. They think that without other people, their life is gone. It's gone. They will die without other people. You know, there are people who cannot stay alone. They can't just be by themselves. They always want somebody else to be by them. They always want the crowd to. They want other people to be in the crowd. Why? Because they are afraid of being alone. Why? Because they think that their life or their success in life is tied to the people that they are attached to. But with solitude, when you go into solitude, nobody is there. Just you and God alone. Just you and God. And you find out that you can be with God. God revealing himself to you. Impacting his presence into you. Giving you ideas and inspiration. And you find out that you still survive without people. No plenty friends. No plenty phone calls. No chatting. No Facebooking, nothing. Just you and God alone in solitude. So with solitude, you now learn to depend on your source. You learn to depend on God. You're not dependent on any other person. You move yourself from the crowd and go alone with God. The last advantage I'm going to give for solitude, which should be number 9. With solitude, you can become a master of any skill at all. You can become a professional of any career with solitude. How? I told you about the rule of 10,000 hours. And I said anything you invest 10,000 hours doing, you'll become one of the best in the world in that thing. Now, with solitude, you can decide to say, I play the keyboard, but because I'm too busy with a lot of things, I don't have time to perfect my skills in keyboard. You can just say, every month, at least I'm taking out one weekend, 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, one weekend. No, I'm not going anywhere. From Friday evening till Sunday morning, I'm going to be by my keyboard. Only me and my keyboard. Perfecting my skills. Playing and playing and playing and playing. And I keep doing that every week. Before you know, you become one of the best keyboard players in the world. So any skill at all that you have, if it's tailoring, you lock yourself up, you and your sewing machine, and all the materials you need to sew. And you keep sewing, you become one of the best. A writer, you want to learn how to write, lock yourself up in solitude and begin to write. So solitude can help you become a master of any skill at all. Anything anybody is doing, you can do it better. Why? Because other people are always busy. They are always running the rat race of life. But if you can isolate yourself and focus on something and learn it, you'll become one of the best in the world. That's what solitude does for you. So with solitude, you become a master and you become a professional. I add one more, last number 10. With solitude, you can produce anything you want to produce. If it's a book you want to write, go into solitude and write the book. You want to write a song, go into solitude and write a song. You want to invent something, go into solitude, think, imagine, use the power of your imagination and imagine what you want to invent and go ahead and invent it. Your imagination works best when you are alone, not when you are with people. If you are with a crowd, your imagination is dead. Your thinking faculty will not work fine. But when you isolate yourself and consciously decide to think and use your imagination works best. It is through solitude that all great inventions came to be. So you too can be an inventor if you decide to practice solitude. So what have I been trying to say? I've been trying to say that one of the greatest treasure that any human being can have is the treasure called solitude. And solitude is one of the greatest treasure through which you can produce anything you want to produce. The best way to convert time into products is through solitude. And without solitude, your life is scattered. Your life is in disarray. But with solitude, you can reorganize your life. You can recreate your life. You can prioritize. You can produce anything you want to produce. You can become an inventor. You can remove some bad character from your life and put in good ones. Anything at all is possible through solitude. So what you need to do from today henceforth, make up your mind. If it is once a week you want to go into solitude, say today I'm not doing anything. I want to go into solitude. Get all the materials you will need in that solitude. Take them. Lock yourself up. And begin to reproduce. Begin to add value to yourself in solitude. You could do it once a month. You could decide to say, maybe once in a month, I take out 1 week or 1 weekend and go into solitude. So all great men that you know practiced solitude. As I round off, I want to tell you about, have you heard of Michelangelo? Michelangelo is one of the greatest artists that ever existed. Michelangelo started practicing solitude from a very young age. He was always drawing. He would isolate himself and be drawing artwork. Do you know that Michelangelo could go into solitude for months? When he was painting the Catholic Church in Rome, he was in that church for months, up to 6 months in one place. What was he doing? Just painting, perfecting his painting skills, painting the roof of the church. Once he wrote a letter to his father, he said, I do not have friends anymore. I'm here alone by myself, doing what I've been born to do. When he finished painting that work, the whole city came to that church to look at what he has painted. That church became a tourist site. And Michelangelo became one of the greatest artists that ever existed. Why? He went into solitude just painting. And he made a name for himself. The same thing happened with Beethoven. Beethoven is a musical composer. Beethoven is one of the greatest musical composers that ever lived. Right from the age of 8, very young age, he started going into solitude. He will isolate himself and go to be playing his keyboard. Go to the studio and be playing. He will be there for so many hours. In fact, when he was growing up, the person who was teaching him how to play the keyboard, when it was time for them to stop rehearsal, Beethoven doesn't want to stop rehearsal. In fact, in the night, when people are sleeping, he wakes up and goes to the keyboard again to be perfecting his skills, isolating himself. When his friends were playing on the streets, following friends, he was with his keyboard, learning music. And that's how he became one of the best musical composers that ever lived. You cannot mention music without mentioning Beethoven. The same thing happened to Johann Sebastian Bach. All these people were all people who practiced solitude. Even Bill Gates himself practices solitude. Because I said without solitude, nothing can be invented. Thomas Edison goes into his laboratory and stays there for a week, and he doesn't even know that he has been there for a week. In isolation, working, doing what he has been called to do. Why? Solitude. So if you want to live a meaningful life, you want to live a life of impact, you cannot do without solitude. Remove yourself from the crowd. Isolate yourself from the rat race of life. And begin to make your life productive through solitude. And I believe that if you practice solitude, you will begin to produce products. Every year you have products. You could write books, write songs, produce different materials, increase knowledge, increase virtue, added value to yourself if you practice solitude. So I'm going to round up by saying that without solitude, your life will be messed up. Your life will be a life that is controlled by other people, that is controlled by social media, that is controlled by society. But if you don't want to be controlled by society, you have to create a time for solitude and begin to ponder on the thing that you have been created to do. Thank you so much. I want to believe that you've learned 10 advantages of solitude, and that from today you are going to implement them. You are going to isolate yourself from the crowd. You are going to ask yourself, why am I in existence? What can I add to the world? How can I impact the world? What are the books I was born to write? What are the songs I was born to write? Who are the people I was born to impact? What are the activities I've been doing that are non-productive that I need to stop doing? What are the activities that I need to engage in that will be productive? I believe from today, you will begin to practice solitude. Thank you so much for your time. Next week, I'm going to come to you again with another topic. And that will be the last topic on the time management series. And that topic will be titled, No one is better than you. They only converted better. I'm going to teach you that topic next week. Thank you so much, and God bless you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I want to know